Imagine you're in Britain in the mid-1840s. There's a craze sweeping through towns and cities, a fever for railways. People are building tracks left and right, but this isn't just any economic boom. This is Railway Mania, where dreams of quick riches clashed with harsh reality as countless railway companies failed due to overbuilding and poor planning. You've probably heard tales of get-rich-quick schemes, but here's the kicker. During Railway Mania in the 1840s, they built thousands of miles of track, more than 5 times what Britain already had, but only about half of it was actually useful. So why did people invest so much money and effort into something that ended up being a massive waste? Let's dig into how this happened. In the 1840s, the railway industry in Britain experienced a period known as Railway Mania. Railways began connecting cities, making travel faster and easier. Investors showed great interest in railway companies like Great Western Railway and London and Birmingham Railway. However, as more tracks were laid across the country, the situation started to become unsustainable due to overinvestment and competition. People fell for 2 big myths. First, that railways would always be profitable no matter what. Second, that building more lines automatically meant more business. This is similar to the modern sentiment expressed by "build it and they will come." In reality, however, having too many railway lines can lead to overcapacity and increased competition, which drives down profits. To understand this better, let's break it down step by step. Step 1. Railway shares became extremely popular during the 1840s in Britain. People believed that owning a piece of these companies would make them wealthy quickly. Step 2. As more individuals invested in railways, share prices escalated dramatically, sometimes increasing tenfold within days or weeks. Step 3. Numerous new railway companies emerged rapidly, each claiming to connect the next major town or city. The numbers were staggering. In 1845 alone, nearly 273 new railway companies were formed. That's almost 2 per day. And all these companies raised millions of pounds, which would amount to billions in today's money, with little plan on how they'd actually make it back. So why did people believe the hype? Simple human psychology. People saw others making quick profits and wanted a piece of it themselves. Additionally, there was an optimistic belief that railway investments would always be lucrative, since railways were seen as essential for economic growth and widespread transportation needs. But here's a secret not many know: railway profits weren't as rosy as they seemed. While some lines were profitable, the majority struggled financially. As more tracks were laid, competition intensified, making it increasingly difficult for individual lines to generate sufficient revenue to cover their costs. To illustrate this, let's look at one company called the Manchester and Leeds Railway. It promised investors a high return, but the actual performance was far from that promise. The company often failed to meet expectations. Reality hit hard when they opened their doors, as they lost money every year. The same story played out across many other lines during the Railway Mania of the 1840s in Britain. Now imagine you're an investor. You've invested your life savings into these shiny new railways, hoping for substantial returns. However, as the market becomes oversaturated with railway companies and investors realize that many of these ventures are not profitable, those shares drop in value or become worthless overnight. It's a real roller coaster ride. What made things worse was that some companies were little more than paper schemes, promising grand railway networks without concrete plans for construction. These were known as phantom railways. While they might have appeared lucrative on paper, they had no realistic prospects of generating revenue or competing effectively in the market. To give you a sense of scale, by 1846, Britain was planning to build over 8,700 miles of new railway track in just 2 years. To put that into perspective, think about building from London to Edinburgh and back 6 times. It's an enormous undertaking, but most of it never happened. So here's the big question: why did so many people invest in something that was clearly going to fail? Part of it is because when things are new and exciting, everyone wants a piece. But another part is that investors often ignore historical patterns and risk assessments. They're like gamblers who believe they'll be the lucky ones. Let's look at some numbers. By 1847, over £250 million had been invested in railways, which would be equivalent to billions today. Yet only about half of this investment ever produced any real track or profit. That means roughly £125 million was wasted on lines that were never built or didn't work. Now if you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of money, you're right. But here's the kicker, this kind of speculative boom wasn't new to Britain. Similar manias had occurred with canal investments and land speculation before, but people always believed it was different this time. The railway mania of the 1840s in Britain taught investors valuable lessons about market bubbles and speculative investment in emerging technologies. When an opportunity appears too good to be true, it likely is. During frenzies surrounding new ideas, the associated risks typically exceed the potential benefits. So how did railway mania end? In 1846, the bubble burst. Companies couldn't raise enough money to build tracks or pay dividends. Share prices plummeted and banks ran out of cash. It was a financial crisis that shook up Britain's economy for years to come. To give you an idea of the scale, over £80 million in bank loans were called in by 1847, which is equivalent to several billion pounds or dollars today when adjusted for inflation. And hundreds of companies went bankrupt, leaving investors with nothing but empty promises and worthless shares. But here's another twist. Even after railway mania ended in the mid-1840s, its legacy lived on. The tracks that were built, though often redundant or poorly planned, still served as an important part of Britain's transportation network. Some lines were later repurposed and became valuable assets, while others remained a reminder of the folly of overinvestment in speculative bubbles. Railway mania of the 1840s in Britain illustrates how easily investors can get caught up in hype surrounding new and exciting innovations. It's like seeing a shiny new technology that everyone says will change lives, before realizing you've invested all your savings without considering the potential risks involved. But railway mania also teaches us another important lesson. Sometimes, even if an idea appears destined to fail, it can still provide long-term benefits. The railway network constructed during this period in the 1840s laid the foundation for Britain's modern transportation system, despite many of those initial investments failing spectacularly. So what can we learn from railway mania today? For one, it's important to be skeptical of quick riches and to understand that every investment comes with risks. Don't just jump on a bandwagon because everyone else is doing it. Think critically about the real value and long-term impact of your investments. Railway mania was a period in the mid-1840s when Britain experienced an explosive boom in railway construction fueled by speculative investment. This era highlighted the importance of sound planning and disciplined execution over rapid expansion, as many poorly conceived projects led to significant financial losses and economic waste, despite the grand vision of advancing transportation infrastructure. In short, the railway mania of the 1840s in Britain reminds us to be wary of hype and to think critically about the real value behind every investment. This is educational and historical, not financial advice. Imagine you're buying a ticket for a train ride to wealth, but what you get instead is a shaky carriage with no tracks laid. That's exactly what happened during railway mania in Britain. Thousands of investors poured money into railways that were built without proper planning or need, often resulting in significant losses. One key lesson from this era is the importance of due diligence. Investors rushed to put money into railway companies without understanding the underlying business model or financial health of these ventures. They ignored red flags and got caught up in the hype, thinking that if everyone was doing it, it must be a good idea. But history shows us time and time again that just because something is popular doesn't mean it's financially sound. Let's look at a specific example, the London and Birmingham Railway Company. It seemed like a great opportunity on paper. Connecting two major cities should be profitable, right? But the company overestimated demand and underestimated costs. Construction was rushed, corners were cut, and the result was financial disaster. By 1848, many railway companies had gone bankrupt, leaving investors with substantial losses. Another crucial takeaway is the impact of market psychology. During railway mania in the 1840s, speculation and excitement drove prices up artificially, creating a bubble that eventually burst. This kind of speculative behavior can be seen in more recent financial crises as well, such as the dot-com or cryptocurrency bubbles. It's important to remember that when something feels too good to be true, it probably is. The railway boom of the 1840s in Britain also revealed the dangers of regulation and oversight being lax or non-existent. Without proper government checks, companies could make grand promises without delivering results. This led to a Wild West atmosphere where anyone with a dream and some capital could start a railway company, regardless of whether they had the expertise or resources to see it through. Railway Mania in the 1840s highlighted how financial institutions and brokers could exploit naive investors during periods of high enthusiasm. They would sell shares in companies that promised quick returns but lacked solid fundamentals. This kind of behavior can still be observed today, with unsavvy investors being lured into schemes or products they don't fully understand. Subject: Railway Mania of the 1840s in Britain. In short, the railway mania of the 1840s illustrates the dangers of unchecked speculation and underscores the importance of critical thinking when considering investments. It serves as a reminder that while new opportunities may appear promising, it is often prudent to approach them with caution, especially if they are driven by hype rather than fundamental value. This is educational and historical, not financial advice.